morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this session of the Small Business Bootcamp and Resource Collective for Thursday, March 25th. I'm Robert Theobald, Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services here at the Arizona Commerce Authority. As always, we like to start our bootcamp sessions by thanking all of our community partners. We could not do these boot camps without the community partners, their expertise, their time, and their effort. So we'd love to thank them. Excuse me. The Small Business Bootcamp and Resource Collective is designed to help small businesses work through the crisis and return stronger than ever. As mentioned, it is a statewide initiative supported by all our community partners. And it is not just a boot camp, but it is also a resource collective. So on the Small Business Bootcamp website, you can find a number of very beneficial things. First, the webinars, you can find the registration links for the upcoming sessions. You can also find the resource collective link. And then the most valuable piece, I think, on the website is our archive. Down at the bottom of the page, you can find all of our previous sessions. We've done over 140 bootcamp sessions, and we have those recorded and posted in the archive so you can access the content whenever you would like. If you missed a session and you want to go back and review it, you can do that. Or if you watched the session and you want to refresh yourself on that topic, it's available. There's no cost to view the archive. Again, so it's a library of over, approximately 140 sessions that you can go back and take a look at. Additionally, as I mentioned, we have the Resource Collective, and the Resource Collective are the tools and resources provided by our community partners to help support small businesses. This is a small list of some of the guides and resources available on the Resource Collective. As you can see, there's safe retail, manufacturing, construction, restaurants, cosmetologists, et cetera. So a lot of great information on the Resource Collective. Another great website I'd like to mention is the Arizona Commerce Authority's COVID-19 Arizona Business Resource page. And on this page, you can find links for business guidance, other links for financial resources, as well as a number of different links and tools to help support your business of any size. Additionally, the ACA has a number of programs that can help small businesses aside from the boot camp. We have our small business services, and we can help you as you're navigating with the SBA, or if you need to work with the SBDCs for some no-cost business counseling, we can get you connected there. We have local banking contacts that can help support you if you're looking for a PPP loan, a micro loan, or a traditional SBA 7A loan. We also share updates for the latest developments. Excuse me. Our workforce division can help small businesses that are looking to hire and grow their employee count, or looking to train and upskill their employees. They have programs to help with both of those. And then our Arizona MEP has programs to support manufacturers throughout the state. They are a great program as well. Additionally, we have our small business checklist. The checklist program is an online interactive tool to help address the commonly requested questions regarding licensing, registration, and compliance at the local, state, and federal levels when starting a business or expanding your product lines. It is a great resource, great tool that we are constantly updating with new information for cities, towns, professions, et cetera. And with that, the last website I want to talk about this morning is the state's COVID-19 information and resource page. This is for everything COVID-19 related, not just business, but arizonatogether.org. With that, we want to jump over to our updates. So we've had a number of different updates in the last week that we want to share. The Shuttered Venue Operator Grant opens on April 8th. And just yesterday, the SBA released the application So you can start, you can't submit the application, but you can start working on it and see what is required. And so this link, and we will share this in the chat, but this link takes you directly to the application. So you can start looking at the different things. We will also have a special boot camp session tomorrow in which we will dive into what we know at this point on the Restaurant Revitalization Fund and the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. So that link is to help register for that session, again, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And then want to share that the SBA is constantly updating their COVID-19 relief option pages for the different programs. That will link you to them. I refer to that website often. It's a great one to have favorited. Additionally, some key things that this just came out yesterday, that the COVID-19 economic injury loan limits have been increased. They've nearly tripled the amount that can be taken, so up to 24 months for the economic impact. However, with that, one of the things that they noted is the SBA will be reaching out to businesses that received the EIDL loans. And you do not have to reapply for that loan increase. They'll reach out with the instructions on how to ask for an increase. And then the final update is the IRS did extend the tax deadlines to May 17th. So those of you that have not filed yet, you have some additional time to do so. So this week's sessions, on Monday, we had how to bring and brand your business online. Today, we have a great session on hiring in 2021 and how to onboard like a pro. And then again, tomorrow, we have our SBA funding for restaurants and event venues. It's a special session, again, with the SBA will be on it, and the Arizona Restaurant Association will be part of it as well. So with that, we want to go ahead and turn the time over to today's speaker. We have Niki Ramirez from HR Answers LLC. She's a founder and principal consultant and an HR expert. So we will turn the time over to you, Niki.
All right. Good morning, Robert. Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a fabulous start to this day. Broadcasting from my home office in Santan Valley, so Southeast Valley here in Arizona. We have a little overcast sky and a little cloud, so I like that for today. We'll take the edge off before the hot summer gets us going. But anyway, thanks again for the invitation. It's nice to be connected to such a committed organization. So the Arizona Commerce Authority is an organization that has resources that I've dipped into in the last year. So of course, all types of businesses are affected different ways because of COVID and the pandemic. And so my HR consulting firm was not left untouched, especially early in the pandemic. And so I want to just personally thank the team at the Arizona Commerce Authority for the support and resources that they provide. And if it's your first time dipping into these resources, go back to that archive because it's an incredible, valuable vault of information. So I'm thankful to be able to have the opportunity to add a little bit of information to that vault. And so today we are going to focus our time, although it will be a little bit short, to cover everything probably that's on your mind. We're going to talk about recruiting and onboarding like a pro in 2021. We have challenges in front of us that are new and continuing, and there are a lot of trends that are evolving in the last several months and the last year that have forced us to really reevaluate the way that we recruit and onboard employees in order to create sustainable workforces and workplaces that people love. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how to recruit and onboard like a pro with the intention and sort of this underlying theme that everything we do, we want to do it because we want to create longevity for our employees. We want to create workplaces that people love. So that's my philosophy as an HR practitioner. Robert mentioned that I'm the founder of HRAnswers.org, which is an Arizona-based HR consulting firm where we really focus on providing practical and actionable ideas and resources for business owners. And this year has certainly shown a light on our need to collaborate and connect, and we're here for you. So I'm hoping that if you have questions at the end of the session, you'll stick around for Q&A. And I've also built in some opportunities for interaction and discussion. We'll use the Q&A panel. I think Lisa mentioned that rather than a chat, that's where we're going to drop some questions and answers. So as I launch into and share our quick agenda for today, I would love for our participants in the live session, if you would do me the honor of dropping a note to let me know right now, what is your number one pressing issue with regards to recruiting and hiring? Another way to ask that same question, drop in the Q&A, what's your number one question that you have about hiring right now? What I want to be able to do is scan that Q&A at a couple of intervals during our session and make sure that I don't miss anything that you came for. I'm sure that we can touch on a lot of different topics, but I want to make sure to address each and everyone's needs here today, specific to your business in the live session. So in the Q&A, go ahead and drop, what's your number one most pressing hiring and recruiting question right now? All right. So what we're going to cover, the plan for today, and I could spend probably hours and days talking about recruiting, hiring, and onboarding, such an important piece of your overall human resources practice in your business. And so we are going to touch on and anchor ourselves to some of the benefits of great hiring practices, great onboarding practices, and take a look at how those practices have a long-term snowball effect in your business. We're going to talk about recruiting great candidates. We're going to talk about great practices that you can implement in your business to help to streamline your pre-screening, streamline your onboarding, and really leave a positive impact on the community and on your candidates as well. We'll talk about interviews specifically. Interviews are a great way to learn more about your candidates, of course, and they create data that you are able to use to measure whether a candidate is a great option for your organization. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about making a great hiring decision, weighing and evaluating your candidates. We'll talk about how to make an offer that leaves an impact, and then we'll talk about onboarding practices as well, because we know that what happens just immediately after someone joins your organization has a long-lasting impact on their experience with your business, and it has a direct and quick impact on whether or not they're going to stay with your company for a period of time. So that's our agenda for today. I'm going to go ahead and pop open the Q&A box and take a peek at it here. So sometimes I feel like I'm a quarterback, quarterbacking screens and things like that. So definitely want to take a peek to scan through. So thinking about wages, that's something that's pressing in job design and workforce analysis. Finding people who apply and actually show up and respond to calls and emails. So we need a good, healthy pipeline that has a lot of candidates in it in order to get people there and showing up. How do we build a comprehensive onboarding plan? We're definitely going to address that. What are things that we can do to be ready or be before ready to hire to make the transition easier? What's the prep work? How do I reach qualified people and motivate them to apply? We'll definitely talk about that. Recruiting and onboarding for a diverse staff that reflects our community. I would love to talk about that. Sources for candidates and onboarding tips. Perfect. All right, thank you so much for sharing, and keep the questions and answers coming as they pop in your mind. And at the conclusion of the session, of course, I'll share my contact information. And if for some reason we don't touch on your topic today, I am committed to following through and chatting with any one of you. You invested your time to be here and participate in the session. And I'm happy to make time to continue a quick conversation on any one question that you have if we don't cover it today. All right, so let's talk just a little bit about trends and data. So I have to admit to you all that I am an HR nerd. So as a human resources practitioner with over 20 years in the field, watching trends, watching data, and doing research in the area of different phases of employment, so recruiting, job design, employee relations, et cetera, is a big piece of what I do that helps me feel prepared to provide support to others. And so let me share with you some of the behind the scenes that we're seeing happening. The first message that I just want to drive home is that you're not alone. So the fact that you're here today is a good indicator that you're not the only one that signed up. You're not the only one here. We are in it together. Recruiting is the #1 top challenge reported by employers to the Society of Human Resource Management for 2021. Second, behind that is workforce planning, and third is workplace health and safety. So we know that because it's a top challenge and it's a top priority, it's something that deserves our attention. And of course, we know that when we get the right people on our teams, we attract the right candidates and we build a great process, and we're able to retain them through excellent onboarding and support ongoing, that our goals are achieved, we can exceed our own expectations. And of course, if that means profit in your business, then we can grow profits. One of the interesting things that I looked at was what's happening in businesses right now in early 2021. We're just closing out the first quarter. What's happening in terms of businesses saying, yes, we're going to hire, no, we're not. We're kind of trying to figure out what the volume of activity and hiring is going to look like into the second, third, and fourth quarter. Well, bottom line, about 50% of businesses anticipate adding jobs this year. So that's a good sign. It's also a sign that we have to do some hard work and due diligence within our organizations to make sure that we stand out as an employer and that we are able to attract the right candidates, of course, to apply for the jobs that we have open. So if you're one of those 50% of businesses that anticipate hiring this year, drop a yes in the Q&A for me. I would love to know, for the folks that are here today, are you planning on hiring? Are you planning on adding jobs this year? About 30% of the respondents in the same survey said that they were going to potentially reduce their workforce, and there were about 10 or 12% that said that they weren't sure yet. So there's a lot of different factors weighing on different types of businesses. My most recent HR directorship was at Wild Horse Pass Development Authority as their director of HR, and that was before I launched HRAnswers.org. So I have a special place in my heart for hospitality, food and beverage, event venues. And so I know that in Arizona, that's a huge part of our employment market. And so when we think about adding business or adding jobs in our businesses, of course, locally, our industry is driving a lot of that. So we do see a lot of potential hiring coming in our communities. Another thing that we need to be thinking about in a look forward basis is thinking about addressing skills gaps. So we have, of course, identified that there are many areas that jobs exist where it is difficult to find a qualified candidate, a qualified new employee, a new team member to fill that role. Many times that difficulty is based on some sort of specialized skill that an employee would need in order to be successful on the job. So we see a lot of activity in recruiting for trade programs, skill-based programs in our communities. That I'm a huge proponent, and I encourage people to explore skill-based programs and trade programs whenever possible, if there's any level of interest, because there is such a great opportunity, especially in Arizona, for skilled trade workers to enter into the field and find great employment. So we need to address skill gaps. We can do that as employers by providing great training in our businesses and coordinating with other community associations. Several, I think Robert mentioned during his introduction today. So there are programs out there that are willing and able to help train your workforce. So get in contact with those community-based programs. The other big issue that we see in terms of what lies ahead, maybe a pitfall or a bump in the road, call it what you will, is that top candidates go fast and they get multiple offers. And so for that reason, we want to make sure that our process is ready and we are prepared to move through it as quickly as possible while still being thoughtful and diligent. So hasty recruiting and hiring can be a long-term problem in our business, or it can create long-term problems. So we don't want to be hasty, but we do want to be diligent and expedient about the process. So we'll talk about that. A point of caution here. So one thing that I did find in the American Staffing Association's recent report, looking at what employees are looking for, a whopping 80% of respondents to their recent survey said that they would be looking for a new job this year. And so bottom line, what that means for us as employers is that recruiting and retaining top talent is going to continue to be difficult. So it's going to stay at the top of that list in terms of things that are that we need to focus on, things that are concerning and challenging to us. But we've got this, and so let's put our heads together, have these resources at our fingertips, and really come up with a process that reflects your organization's culture, values, and gets the word out in a way that's meaningful in your community too. So with 80% of respondents saying that they're going to be looking and considering new jobs, let's make sure that you stand out. Before we get into the nuts and bolts, I did want to mention, so there's an author, a writer that works for the Society of Human Resource Management. His name is Roy Maurer, and he writes about recruiting and hiring on a regular basis, and he's a go-to resource that I like to read his information. So thinking back to that 80%, we have 80% of respondents saying that they're going to be looking for new jobs. We have a lot of job seekers out there. That's a lot of, potential pipeline for recruitment. Why are they looking for new jobs? Well, there are a multitude of reasons, and the top reasons are disengagement and burnout at this time. And so today we're not going to spend time talking about employee engagement necessarily or addressing employee well-being and burnout, but that's a huge part of what we need to be thinking about in terms of the employee life cycle, the employee's experience with our organization. And that really does begin during recruitment. Their experience as a new team member begins the day that they apply with your company. So how do you engage folks? How do you prevent burnout? How do you focus on career development and professional development and advancement within your organization? Even a small organization, a small business with just 1 or 2 or 5 or 15 employees, how are you creating incentives and paths for your employees to want to stay long-term, to be able to see their future with you? So why are they turning over? Why are people looking for new jobs? We can address that in a lot of ways and set up for success during the recruitment process. But knowing that they are simply looking for a new opportunity, a fresh start, maybe you're going to be that for them. So that might be a good opportunity. So when we think about the why would we spend time today? I'm sure you're busy. I'm sure you have a lot of priorities. You're here for about an hour or so. And what do you hope to get out of this? So what are the benefits of having effective hiring and onboarding practices? Well, we know that there are many, and we know that when we focus on our process and building relationships through the recruitment and onboarding process, that we are able to realize these benefits. So if we're doing it right, let's say, keep it simple here, we're going to decrease turnover. We're going to potentially increase productivity by having the right people in the right jobs who have the right skills. We'll improve employee morale because we have teams that are complete and that complement one another, and people are getting things done, and that feels good. Bottom line, we will be able to realize an increase in profits over time. When we hire people, we do it so that we can do more work typically, or we can serve more customers or more clients. And always running in the background in my life as an HR professional is employment risk and liability. And so if we are careful about building an effective hiring practice and onboarding practice, we will inevitably reduce our legal risks and costs as well. And we'll talk about a few regulatory pitfalls along the way, but we won't spend too much time on that today. So some of the top trends and tips, that's a little bit of a tongue twister for me this morning. So top trends and tips in recruiting and onboarding today that I wanted to share with you so that you can kind of start with your pen and pencil. If you've got a note paper, I'll be mentioning lots of ideas today and strategies that you might be able to just pluck out of this presentation and start implementing today. So maybe there's something on this list that will be meaningful to you and you want to help develop that thought over the course of our time together today. So some top trends that we see, most activities are still going to be virtual. We do know that health and safety is important to candidates. So making sure that during the recruitment process, you are prepared to communicate about and articulate what types of health and safety precautions you have in place for your employees and your job candidates is going to be very important. A lot of employers are still opting to host virtual interviews, and we feel and believe, we kind of think that in the world of HR, that virtual recruiting and hiring will become a standard practice in business ongoing, even post-pandemic. And so we're here in 2021, we've been 12 plus months, or into our 12th month of the pandemic. So of course we shifted to virtual hiring practices quickly because we needed to. But what we found is that it works, and it does help to streamline processes and make things easier, more efficient in some ways. And so virtual hiring will continue. We know that a multi-step process is best as well. We want to keep candidates engaged. We want to continue to learn about them, and we want them to continue to be able to learn about us along the way. So two-way street, multi-step process is going to be best. We can use technology to expedite our hiring processes. And so we'll talk about some systems that you can think about integrating or using in your business that will help to move things along quickly, get things checked off of your to-do list as you recruit and hire. And when we think about an idea here that I would like you to consider implementing some strategies in your business to address, we are able to build positive relationships with so many people through the recruiting process that we see a focus on it going forward, that we see that our image as an employer and our brand as an employer is, it's impacted, of course, through the recruitment process. And so we should have a focus on building positive relationships with those that we are not hiring. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about that and just share a personal example. So I am currently hiring in my business for a senior HR consultant. So we're adding a new team member. And through the process, I have met about 65 excellent qualified candidates for that position from around the country. And of course, I don't have the capacity to add 65 consultants right now, or I would for sure, maybe one day. But today we just need one. And so a part of my process in recruiting for my own company was to ensure that we cared for and tended to those that were not selected in a way that was respectful and showed dignity and respect for their experience. And in my message to them that said that we were not selecting them for further consideration, I invited them to connect with me on LinkedIn. So that's where I hang out from a social media perspective, a professional social media perspective. And so through the recruitment process, I've been able to share a little bit about HR Answers with these candidates and what we do, and to build some new relationships and cultivate those down the road. So we've got some new, hopefully professional friends and connections through the process. So even though it's difficult to tell someone that you're not going to hire them, know that that has an impact on the image that your organization has within the community. And so tend to those relationships and focus on building positive relationships, even and especially with those people you don't select for hiring. And again, last piece there, we'll talk about streamlining onboarding as well. All right, so as we get into the nuts and bolts here, and we talk about what types of activities you can be engaging in, we want to first talk about getting prepared. So, if we have a process in place that is efficient, it's probably efficient because we know what to do, when, and how to do it. And so procedures are important, even for small businesses. Again, 1 or 2 employees only. It's time to start thinking about writing standard procedures and getting yourself organized, not because you want to be rigid and unflexible, but because you want to be efficient and you want to have a process in place that it has consistency, so you have consistent positive results. Oh, let me get my clicker going here. There we go. All right, so the first thing I want you to think about is putting on your marketing hat. And there are some excellent marketing type resources in the Arizona Commerce Authority Bank that Robert referred to. And that's actually what I dip into most often, is learning about marketing and sales in my business. And I want to shift that sort of strategy into recruiting. So recruiting is a sales and marketing type function within your business. So I want you to think about focusing on the 4 P's of recruiting. First of all, tell people what the price is. And by price in this situation, I mean the pay rate. We want people to self-select out of the process if the rate of pay that you're offering or the salary range at the low end is not acceptable to them. We don't want to be beating around the bush and finding a great candidate that won't take the job because the salary is too low. So I do recommend that you publish your rate of pay or your salary range with every position that you advertise. Be specific about what the product is, what's the job, what are the job details, who are you, what's the company? Tell people about yourself in your job posting so that you can align from a values perspective as much as possible. In the beginning of a job advertisement, I like to see something like, first a little bit about our company, or first a little bit about our values or our mission statement. And then about the job, here are some of the daily duties, here are some of the essential functions, here's a sample list of things that you'll do in this position. And really start talking to the candidate, the potential candidate in the job posting in a way that helps them envision themselves in the job and evaluate if that is something that they would enjoy. Next, you have to promote your job, so get people talking about it. I'm going to get into that in just a moment, what that looks like to promote your jobs. And then place, where should your candidates apply? How are they going to be sending you their resume, their application, completing profiles or surveys, things like that on a pre-hire basis? Outline your process, make sure that they know where to apply. Because even if you have a central job board for your company, maybe it's on your company website, or perhaps it's listed on Indeed or another job posting board, you want to be able to share that link and that information out with the community in a larger way and reach more people. So in your opportunities to share the word about your open job, make sure that people know that all candidates should go to Indeed to apply, for example. And that's just an example. All right, some current trends in terms of how job seekers are saying that they land their new role. So I wanted to get this information to you so that you can think about how you are going to share the word and promote your new positions. So the number one, and these are in order of what do you call it? Like the number one way that job seekers are finding their new job is by word of mouth. So it goes to say that the activity that we engage in to share personally about open jobs goes a long way. So word of mouth is number one, followed by job boards and websites. Employer websites is number three. And then newspaper, quote unquote, help wanted ads or listings like a Craigslist type site is another way. And number five is contacts at prospective employers. So we know that word of mouth is number one and job boards are number two. So we'll talk about both of those. Top online job boards in 2021, the most activity, the most popular, the ones that we see people going to find new jobs are listed here. So we have Indeed listing all types of jobs. Indeed and Glassdoor merged, so they're actually the same company in the last couple of years. Definitely their approach to recruiting is based on culture building. And so when you post a job on Indeed, there are indicators of your activity as an employer to help people understand how engaged you are in the process. And candidates can rate your company as well and give feedback on your process. And so that's an interesting development on Indeed, which we do see as one of the most popular job boards right now. ZipRecruiter, of course, is another popular place to post all types of jobs. LinkedIn, we see a lot of full-time, supervisory and above type jobs posted there. We do see quite a bit of activity on Facebook right now for frontline workers, hourly jobs, and that has been pretty successful, especially here in my Arizona client market. I have a lot of clients in retail, hospitality that are really successfully using Facebook to post jobs and to bring in applications. Snag a Job is another one. So if you haven't heard of that, it's a funny name, but it is definitely out there and is a pretty popular place to, again, post jobs for frontline workers, hourly and part-time jobs. And if you are looking for contact with college students, Handshake is a great opportunity as well. So those are some of the top job boards that are out there. So you probably want to look around, see what seems like a good fit for your company culture, create a profile on those boards, and get dip your toe in the water, give it a chance. And before we move on to sort of talking about how to get that word of mouth out into the community, I wanted to just mention that you shouldn't overlook the power of community-based resources. There are so many excellent job skill and professional development programs here in Arizona, so many state and county-based career offices and nonprofit organizations that focus on offering training and retraining for workers, that if you build a reputation as a thoughtful employer, someone who cares about your employees' success, and somebody who is ready to hire and has a good process, just get in there, get connected with organizations like Arizona at Work, and you will see your pipeline increase in probably ways that you didn't think were possible. I think we get stuck sometimes thinking about using things like Indeed or ZipRecruiter or LinkedIn or whatever it is, and we overlook the power that we can generate when we reach into our communities. All right, so when we think about word of mouth, how the heck do we get the word out? So we have to ask others to spread the word. Do you have an employee referral program? I just set up a new employee referral program for a client of mine that has already filled their 5 currently open positions and created a pipeline of interested candidates it's a hospitality organization, for potential future needs as well. And it was all based on an employee referral program that did have a little bit of a cash payout. And so after a new employee is hired, you might say that if they make it to their 90 days, introductory period is over, the employee who referred them perhaps gets a payout. Depending on what your budget looks like for that, it might be anywhere between $75 to $250. Some positions that are being filled at the professional level, employee referrals are paid out at the $250 to $500 level as well. So it really just depends what your budget is. I also see employers providing great perks and incentives for sharing good referrals. So maybe buying an employee dinner or a gift card to their favorite coffee shop, or something like that, a token of your appreciation. Maybe it's not a cash bonus, but we know cash is still king right now with most employees. So if you have an employee referral program, just make sure that you bullet it out and you have a good policy and procedure in place so that people know when they're eligible for an incentive for referring somebody. And then market that program like crazy within your workforce. Make sure that you're talking about it, that you are introducing it to employees and letting them know how it works. And celebrating when people do pass on great referrals, celebrate those employees widely across the company. And then when you are hiring, are you telling your vendors, are you telling others within your business community that you're hiring so that they can share? And if they send you an excellent candidate, somebody that you hire, are you sending them a small gift or a token of your appreciation, at least an email or a card or something like that to say thank you? So getting the word out is, like I said, it's a key component here. So grabbing your pen and pencil, and feel free to drop a note in the Q&A as well. I'll pop that open. I'm just going to give you 10 seconds to complete action item number 1. So you guys are getting a snip into the fact that I have taught community college classes before. And so there's always homework and action items when we get together. So word of mouth, list 3 people that you're going to tell about open jobs, and list 2 places that you'll share your job ad or link that are new for you. So 2 new places, right? So how are you going to get the word out? Let's make sure that you have at least 1 action item to leave here with us today. All right. So when we think about getting prepared for this process, how are we going to make sure that we get the right person in the job? First, we need to do some job analysis and create a job description. And we want to ask ourselves, what type of specific experience, skills, or attributes does this person need to show up with on day 1? What types of things can I train them to do? We want to be able to put a good job description together. We want to analyze the current workforce and say, what gap am I trying to fill if it's a new job? Or if I'm backfilling a position, is it still a good description of what needs to be done? So get a clear job description in place. I know it might sound like a little bit of extra work or a pre-step that maybe you're not sure if it's valuable or not, but I promise you that when you want to start talking about roles and responsibilities and success on the job, having that job description in place is going to be an excellent tool for the life of your employees. I also recommend putting together an ideal candidate profile. So if you could just pluck your ideal candidate out of the sky and they would come to you on a magic carpet, what would they be able to do? What skills and abilities and attitudes would they possess? What programs and systems and tools would they be able to use? Do they have any type of certifications or education, experience and availability for work? You know, what are the ideal attributes of your top candidate? Paint that picture so that you know who they are when you meet them. So taking a little time to design the job description and this ideal candidate profile will really get you positioned to have a clear interaction with people along the way so that you'll know if they're your top candidate or not. I do recommend putting together some knockout questions, we call them, before you get too deep in the process with your candidates. So job-related qualifications and experience that are not negotiable, and they are not things you can train an employee on day one. They need to show up ready to, to do something or to have an availability that meets your needs. So lots of times you'll see these pre-screening questions come out in job ads and different recruiting tools. And so a candidate will have to go through and answer, are you available on nights and weekends? Yes. Do you have a driver's license? Maybe they need to drive a delivery vehicle for you, and so a driver's license is not negotiable. So make sure you have a good process in place for using or for getting these knockout questions answered. If you're not hiring using a job board, that's okay. You can send these via messaging, text message, Facebook message, or create a Google form to do the same. Different types of questions used throughout your process will also yield great results in terms of the data that you're gathering on your candidates. So I wanted to touch on 3 different types of questions very quickly, just to share what they are so that you can consider incorporating all 3 of them into your process. Behavioral question is number 1, technical questions are number 2, and theoretical questions are number 3. And I want you to think about incorporating all 3 types again into your recruitment process, because it will help you to uncover the experiences that your candidate actually has, the things that they can actually do, and important ideas that are sort of values-based in the theoretical questions. So an example of a behavioral question, and this is my favorite behavioral question that I've been using for years, and it works really well to get to know your candidate and to learn about their sense of accountability and honesty and integrity. So tell me about a time when you made a mistake at work. What happened? What was the result of the mistake? And what did you learn from it? So that question reveals a lot about candidates. And in order to break the ice, I often preface the question like this. I say that the next question I'm going to ask you is a really important question about mistakes. And we know that we all make mistakes because we're human. So I'm going to ask you about a mistake that you made at work. And then when you're done sharing with me, I'm going to share with you about a mistake that I made one time. So breaking the ice, letting them know that you're going to share back with them is a good way to ensure that they are willing to participate in that question, be vulnerable with you. So tell me about a time you made a mistake. It is a multi-part question, and so you may have to repeat yourself. So don't worry about that. If the candidate gets stuck and doesn't remember what else to answer, just give them that question again. Technical questions are also really important. So asking people, for example, do you know how to use a specific program? So I just used Outlook as an example here. So we use Microsoft Outlook for email and calendars on a scale of 1 to 5. How comfortable are you with Outlook? And give them what that means. 1 meaning you're unfamiliar with the program, 5 meaning you could teach others how to use it. How comfortable are you? And then also an important part of technical questions is asking people to share with you how they've used that program, that tool, that piece of equipment on the job previously. So telling you specific examples of how they've used it is an important part of that process, because we don't want people just to simply check the box and say, oh yeah, I can use that tool, I can use that equipment or that program. We want to know how familiar they are if it's a really critical system or tool. The last and the third type of question I want you to think about incorporating into your process here in 2021 are these theoretical questions. So what would you do if you discovered that your client left a poor review of your services online, right? So we can talk about sort of that client-facing, customer-facing attitudes and reactions. And then we also could ask a question about job relationships with leaders and supervisors. We might say something to the job candidate like, our supervisors provide a lot of feedback and coaching on the job to new employees or to all employees. What would you do if you learned your supervisor was not 100% pleased with your performance? So theoretically, what would they do? You're not asking them to dip into their memory and give you an example of a time when, but we do want this to be an expression of their values and their ability to take feedback and be a dedicated learner and someone who is ready to improve. So those are 3 types of questions that I want you to consider using. And as an HR compliance nerd, like I said, I did want to leave you this list also of topics that you would want to avoid. So certain companies are obligated to ensure that they are not engaging in practices that are discriminatory or harassing during the job recruitment process or in employment as well. And so we don't want to ask people questions about their age or how old they are. We don't want to ask questions about religion or marital status. We don't want to ask questions about national origin and their last name or language, things like that. We don't want to ask questions like, do you have a disability either? And so we want to keep our interview questions and process focused on the job that we're trying to fill and be specific to explore the abilities that someone has related to that job. All right, so in order to get through your process quickly and timely so you don't lose good candidates along the way, you want to have a process in place that lets you be in contact with great candidates quickly. It's best if you do that within just 2 to 3 days. Incorporate some sort of automated knockout questions. Think about doing a phone screening. Having a quick message exchange to ask clarifying questions about experience or availability, have your live interview, and then you can also think about doing practical activities or a realistic job preview. So again, just to give you an example, in my hiring process, after my live interviews, I sent to my candidates a couple of scenarios that they might likely encounter on the job as an HR consultant with HRanswers.org. And I asked them to respond as if they were responding to a client question. So we did a little bit of practical activity. And in other jobs that I have supported and hired for in the past, a realistic job preview is a great opportunity for a top candidate to come in to the workplace for just an hour or so and see what it looks like to do the work. So come in and see how it looks. We're not asking them to actually do work at that time. We're just asking them to shadow, give feedback, and potentially ask them a few more questions. And then you're able to maybe make a job offer at that time. So action item number 2 is thinking about process improvement. Is there one thing that you might add or take away from your current process in recruitment to enhance it or refine it? So that's something I want you to think about. So please, definitely have one thing on your list, one thing that you think you could improve or refine. And you can feel free to drop that in the question and answer box as well if you'd like to. A question came in the question and answer that says, although we can't ask maiden name, can you ask to give different names that they've used while at work? You can ask about other names used, typically in the post-offer phase. So when it's post-offer but pre-employment, they haven't started yet, you can ask people to fill out a background check authorization. You can ask them if there are other names that they've used at work so that you can ensure that you have a seamless process when you do e-verify or go through new hire reporting, things like that. So you can ask for other names used, and we typically reserve that question until after we've made an offer, though, to get specific about it. That's a good question. All right, let's go here. We got a few more minutes to talk about evaluating our options, making an offer, and onboarding, keeping people excited about that job, getting them excited and keeping them happy. So evaluating your process here, I want you to, again, be prepared. So please don't go into an interview or an interaction with a potential candidate without reviewing their resume or application if they've already sent it to you. As an employer, we want to show up prepared and start to model great communication and, and the attributes that we look for in our organization. So preparedness and attention to detail might be important on the job. Let's show the candidates that we are committed to that as well by being prepared, being able to mention, I saw on your resume, I looked at your application and I noted this. So, definitely look at that information ahead of time so that you have a good working memory of what that candidate's background and experience are. If you're doing a phone interview, I just wanted to make mention that we should keep it to 20 to 30 minutes max. Try to call it a scheduled time, not to surprise someone so that they feel prepared to have the conversation with you, and try to keep it to about 5 questions or less. We're really trying to dip into whether or not a candidate would be a good fit for the organization based on maybe a couple of key details, like their interest in working with a particular type of client, or their interest in doing a particular type of work for your company. Maybe you're a construction firm and you're looking for people to help with roofing projects or framing projects at this time. Be specific about that during the phone interview. And then if the candidate seems like a good fit, you can move them along in the process. Don't wing it. Wings are for Tuesday night special for dinner, but don't wing it in your interviews. Be prepared like we talked about. We don't have to be rigid, but I do encourage you to have standard questions prepared so that you can evaluate your candidates equally, sort of on the same playing field throughout the process. You don't want to ask one candidate one set of questions and another candidate different questions. We want to have a consistent and fair process. And always just be prepared yourself. Have a blank sheet of paper and a fresh pen ready to go. So action item number 3 here. What information do you need to get from candidates before you interview them, and how will you find it? I want you to be able to have a lot of data to be able to make these great hiring decisions. So is it an application for employment? Maybe you're not currently using one and you would like to incorporate that into your process. I really do recommend an application or resume be used in every situation for all positions, because we want people to really share with us some key details about their experience and education and things like that. There are certain positions where folks are maybe new to the workforce, and that's okay. We want them to be able to let us know that too through the application and resume process. Skill tests are sometimes appropriate. I'm not a huge fan of skill testing during the recruitment process, but I know there are instances where it does make sense. We just have to make sure that skill testing doesn't create a discriminatory practice and that our skill tests are fair. And so again, as an HR compliance person, that's a whole other topic that we could talk about. If you're skill testing and you want to talk about your tests and whether or not they seem equitable and fair, we can definitely do that. Are you using knockout questions? Do you want to? And then verification of certification, training, employment. How are you getting ready to verify that information through the process? So feel free to drop a note in the chat if you would like. All right. So we have data now because we've recruited, we have got, we got the word out, we got lots of great candidates, we've interviewed, we've done some activities, things like that. So now just time to confirm and organize your data. Review your candidate's profile based on your interactions with them. Ask any follow-up questions you have too. I just worked with a client who was hiring a new warehouse manager, and she wanted to bring on someone who had a background in general management for a multi-location restaurant. Her business has an international shipping component, and so she really liked this guy. She really wanted to bring him on, but she was really just feeling nervous about the fact that he didn't have a particular skill set. And so rather than bypass the person who felt like a really great candidate who was just lacking some skill, we put together a follow-up question for him to ask him specifically how he would fill that knowledge gap. So if you were offered the position, what would you do? What resources would you use to learn about international shipping regulations, guidelines related to their industry? And so we gave it to the candidate. We gave him 3 days to respond. And he, within a day, sent back a plan with resources and websites and things like that that he would reach into to get a working knowledge base in that area. So ask follow-up questions. Don't be shy about going back and saying, I think you told me this, but I'm not too sure. Do verify past employment, speak with references when that's appropriate as well. Some companies do background checks, so criminal background screening or credit checks, things like that. Depends on the position if that's appropriate. You want to verify educational credentials or educational background and credentials. Maybe you're asking for an unofficial transcript with grades redacted, just showing graduation date or something like that for your new hires. Or if they need a certification or license, of course, get that before you hire them so that you can evaluate that and make a final offer. And then before you hit that big go button, you want to reaffirm scheduling and other non-negotiables. So reaffirm scheduling availability so that you know that once they get started, that they're going to be able to be committed to working with you in the way that you need them to work. So being specific about whether the work is remote, in person, or hybrid, and working hours and things like that. All right. When you are taking that last look at all of your candidates, you want to look at your ideal candidate profile that we talked about back in the beginning, and you want to really evaluate each candidate and say, how well does this person meet my expectations today on day one? And you can come up with a rating scale that makes sense to you, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you want to lay your candidates side by side and go through that final process, be diligent, be thoughtful about it, and then you're ready to make your final offer because your answer will be clear. You want to communicate your offer clearly, and so on the slide that you're seeing right here, you just have a really simple word track for that, a little script. So I want you to think about, though, being super clear before you bring the person on to work on day one. And I know that might sound simple, but there are a lot of times that we are really trying to hurry through the process, not because we don't care about it or not, because we don't want to, but because we're really in a time crunch. So before you bring someone on for onboarding, make sure that you have clarified what the job title is, the rate of pay, whether or not they're eligible for benefits or sick leave. In Arizona, of course, we have mandatory sick leave. But if there are any company holidays or paid training you want to tell them about, perks, things like that, you can incorporate that into your verbal offer and get a verbal acceptance on the start date as well. So this is a verbal script that you might use. And then beyond that, for all your positions, for every position, part-time, hourly, seasonal, full-time, whatever it is, I do recommend that you communicate everything in an offer letter, either a letter, an actual letter that you attach to an email, or just an email that's scripted out that provides details about the company, that provides information about who the employee's supervisor will be, what their job title is, whether they're exempt or non-exempt, so they're paid a salary or they're an hourly employee who's eligible for overtime pay. Are they a contract employee or are they at will? What's their start date? What about benefits? And then what else about onboarding and new employee orientation? So do they need to be prepared to bring documents to do their I-9 and E-Verify? Do you need a copy of their driver's license because they're going to be a driver of a company vehicle? Outline all of that in your job offer letter so that they are really prepared on day one. And your job offer letter, again, should reflect the information that you shared verbally so that when you send it, it's not the initial time that your candidate is seeing the information they've already verbally accepted. So thinking about making an attractive offer, again, you're demonstrating to this potential new employee what it's like to work with you. So what can you do to show people your best side? What can you do to make an attractive offer, to have a process in place that shows your commitment to their positive work experience? All right. So we are here to our last and final topic. I know we're at the top of the hour, so thanks for sticking on with me if you can. And I want to share with you some trends in onboarding in 2021. So the first 180 days is what I want you to think about. Onboarding is a process of bringing someone on through a technical new hire process. So that's number one. That's easy, right? So get their tax forms, enter their demographic information into payroll or HR information systems, provide copies of important documents like your employee handbook, job description, safety procedures, that sort of thing. We can do that through a lot of really savvy and simple to use systems that are offered to small businesses and large businesses alike. So we might be able to do electronic onboarding through our payroll company. So explore ways to streamline and make this process as easy as possible. And the other big thing, and the most important thing about onboarding and bringing someone on, creating conditions for success. That's really our overall objective. So when we think about this onboarding phase, bringing someone, like literally think about a ship, like they're boarding the ship, they're on. Now what? What do we do? Why do we do it? What's the purpose? Really, the purpose is to get them acclimated, to learn about how to be successful on the job and to build a sense of belonging. And so a lot of times, onboarding and orientation, the terms in business are pretty interchangeable. Onboarding is this long process of incorporating a new team member into your larger team and helping them be successful on the job. Orientation is often an event or several activities where we provide information to simply orient the person to the organization, like going through the handbook and safety procedures, things like that. All right, so here's a checklist that I often share with clients and people that I'm working with about the first phase in onboarding. So phase one is the 0 to 90 days in my opinion, okay? So when we look at this 0 to 90 days, what are we doing to set this employee up for success? Well, we are really trying to make it so that they see themselves as a member of the team, that they belong there, that they are able to build relationships with people in a way that feels good. They feel like they're a part of the team. They feel like they know who their coworkers are. So in the first day of work, the first couple of days of work, doing introductions, taking tours, even if it's virtual tours. As a supervisor, you can virtually tour and have other team members join you via Zoom in 10 or so minute increments and tour everybody's home offices, rather than coming in and touring the warehouse or the shop or the restaurant. But if you have on-site tours, make sure that you, or if you have an on-site business, sorry, definitely make sure that you are touring with your new employees, taking them around, showing them the facility. You might assign an ambassador for a new employee. So that's just somebody that you know loves working at your company, not the person that's going to supervise, mentor, or train your new employee, just somebody else that they can go to for support and to learn more about the team and the company. You should be prepared with day one and week one essential job duty training. And please don't try to do it all at once. And remember that as human beings, repetition is super important, and we need to repeat training concepts, and we need to retrain people during these first 90 days on a regular basis. Have a plan for ongoing training as well during these first 90 days. So day one training, week one training, and then during those first 90 days, weeks 1 through 12, what kind of ongoing training are you supporting, or how are you supporting your employee through ongoing training? What kind of job duties are you checking in on? What kind of shadowing opportunities and on-the-job training can you incorporate? Make sure that you're offering a new hire survey. So part one of your new hire survey, somewhere around like 30 to 45 days is a great interval where we're asking the employee questions like, how easy was it to apply for the job? So far, is the job what you expected? Do you feel like you belong in your role? Do you feel like a part of the team? So asking some new hire survey questions just to see how they're getting acclimated. And then at the 90-day point, I hope that you're doing a simple new employee evaluation that helps create a system and set the stage for you to be able to provide some formal evaluation feedback to your employee in a non-threatening type way. And so that's a really important part of the process, is to help people understand what it feels like to work with you on evaluation. And we've asked them to evaluate the company and their experience so far too. So hopefully it's a two-way street. And during those first 90 days, a supervisor should be having a weekly one-on-one with all new employees and just asking them, how are you doing? What do you need help with? Am I stopping you from being successful in any way? Do you need more training on something? What can we do to support you? And then phase two of this onboarding 180 days really focuses on ensuring that the employee is expanding their knowledge base, that they are expanding and building relationships across your organization, and that they are able to sort of start envisioning a future for themselves within your company. So talking about continued professional growth, setting goals with your employees for the next 90 days is a super important part of that process. Getting with them and saying, you've completed your 90-day introductory period. Now let's think about the next 90 days. Tell me one thing that you want to learn more about. Tell me one activity that you want to participate in that you haven't yet. Tell me who's someone on our team that you'd like to meet and work with that you haven't had a chance to meet and work with yet. Help them expand their knowledge about the company. Keep telling them stories about your clients, about your history, your background, your founders. Help them expand relationships with people within different departments across your organization. Having an opportunity to do that really anchors people in their role and helps them to see what happens at a larger scale within the organization and how they fit into it. And we know when people feel like they fit into the larger organization, they are happier at work, they understand how they contribute to success, and that increases retention. When your employee is ending, sort of getting to the end of the fifth, into the 6th month of employment, you might be offering stretch assignments, so things that they can try doing to see if there is a skill that they can continue to develop that would be valuable for both of you. I do encourage folks to do something fun to celebrate the 6-month anniversary. So if you can share a token of your appreciation, a gift, a coffee mug with your logo on it, or a cup of tea, or whatever it is, an incentive, a bonus, or a pay raise at 6 months is always a good milestone to look at. For our entry-level frontline workers, part-time people, a small increase in pay goes a long way at that 6-month mark. And so, if there's a need to sort of talk about how to budget for that and, different ways that you can use compensation strategy, definitely let me know if that's something you'd like to talk about. Do new hire survey part 2. So you're asking them for more feedback on how their experience is evolving with the organization, focusing specifically again on that sense of belonging and their sense of ownership in their role with the organization. And in this 90 to 180 day phase, perhaps you are working on biweekly one-on-ones. So maybe you're not meeting with them weekly anymore, depends on your business and the volume of work, but perhaps you're just meeting biweekly at that point. All right, so action item number 5 to close with here in terms of your to-do list. What are 2 things that you would do to refine your onboarding process? So feel free to jot them down on your Post-it note or paper at your desk, or drop them in the questions and answers panel as well. Either way is great, but definitely start thinking about it. There are ways that we can all improve in our businesses, and onboarding, helping people feel acclimated and build that sense of belonging is so important in the long run. So quick summary of where we've gone today. It's been a wild ride and a quick one, and lots of topics to continue to explore and discuss. But we have talked about what you're up against, some of the data and trends. We've talked about getting creative, refining your process and planning that out, asking great questions during your interviews. I say this, verify your feelings. That's looking at your data, going back and saying, what information do I have? How do I feel about this candidate? And then making a good decision based on your evaluation, clear offer, and onboard with purpose. So that's where we've been. It's been fun for me. I hope it's been good for everyone else. I hope that you've got a couple of ideas to take with you. I'm going to pop the question panel open again here too, to see if we've got any other notes that I should address.
So Niki, we're going to have to go ahead and wrap up at this time, but we can follow up with some of those questions. We had participation in the Q&A. So attendees, thank you very much for your participation and sharing that information as Niki asked about it. Niki, thank you very much. Content was awesome. Covered lots of ground, but lots of good ground. I really liked the takeaways and the assignments that you gave. So thank you very much. With the over 20 years of hiring people that I've been involved in, all these things are so important. So it's been great. With that, we want to go ahead and close out, but remind everybody about our special session tomorrow for restaurants and event venues. Please join us, get updates on those SBA programs and how to get the funding that is going to be opening up soon. And with that, if we don't see you tomorrow, please join us on Tuesday for our next session at 9 a.m. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.